All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Getting Back to Work, number 7. Thank you very much for taking the time to join and have a conversation. Again, this is a weekly show that we do based off of articles that we read during the week and break down to really show the crossover between access control, getting back to work, the built community. It's sponsored by OpenPath. We're appreciative of having them as a good partner to help put this together and excited to have them do that. So thank you for taking the time. We've got 3 great articles this week. I can't believe it's number 7. It's a testament to the team focused on getting good content and really just the consistency base of us doing this. So hopefully you all find this to be a value and we continue to deliver this and bring it to every week. So thank you again. All right, since we talked last week, this week we're starting to see more themes coalesce and come together, coalesce and come together in this. And really, this one this week that I wanted to talk about was how the real estate market is getting back to work, and the conversation that's going on right now around is the office dead, our city's dead. All of that kind of good stuff. So we found 3 articles. The first one was a recognition of something that came out of the Wall Street Journal by Sebastian Herrera. It's a conversation that they had around Amazon bets on the office-based work with expansion in major cities. Pretty interesting. It's like common Amazon stuff. Everyone's zigging, they're zagging. But what happened here is they came out in the marketplace and basically said, we're not going to be abandoning the office and we're not abandoning major cities. In fact, they're opening more, but they're doing it with flexibility in mind. So why this is important to the access control industry, this is a big company that people pay a lot of attention to, and there's a belief that a lot of what they do, people will continue to sort of emulate and follow. And I'm going to guess, too, that I believe a lot of what they're talking about is actually what we're going to see in the marketplace. So this idea that everyone is leaving the cities. There are people that are leaving the cities, no doubt. I have some personal friends that live in DC, going down to Orlando, Tampa area. I've got some friends that were in New York City and are now going up to Connecticut. And you can read on Twitter all day long about companies and people, and companies going from, let's say Planeteer was the latest one that's leaving there and going to Texas. And so it's definitely a thing. But I also believe that there will be, and people have written about this, there's some people that have gone back into there, going to fill it in. So maybe it's younger. I think a demographic change that may be happening in some of these cities where maybe people that have, families and kids are finally realizing that New York City may not be the place for them. But there's a bunch of people that don't have kids and a bunch of younger people that may find the city life to be fascinating and good. So I still think there will be a lot of talent. And I think Mandy was saying here, she put, and so for everybody too, if you want, there's a live chat. Feel free to add questions, comments. I'll read them and we can discuss them too. What is that? Mandy believes this is an indication of our future, and no doubt. I actually think what I love is typically in these conversations, people want to have binary. When I actually think there could be some parallel things that are going on. So I do think people are leaving cities. I do think there will be a backfill of them. What it does, though, is I do believe it will impact the way systems work, cities work, things like that, based off of the demographic that is moving in and moving out. So it'll be interesting to see. Some other comments in the article that was there was they actually interviewed Ardine, I believe, or Idine Williams, the Vice President of Workforce Development at Amazon. And Ardine said, the ability to connect with people, the ability for our teams to work together in an ad hoc fashion, you can do it virtually, but it's also spontaneous. And that's the problem that they have with a lot of this, is that you need to be in places like that to have those spontaneous collisions. Now, there are some technology people working on, but it's not there yet. So they're looking forward to returning to the office. They also went on to say that while many corporate executives were pleasantly surprised at how quickly the workforce adapted to the circumstances that we've had, many have come to see the downsides of remote working, including challenges for training new workers, which is tough, barriers to collaboration, lengthier timelines for some projects and such. And I do believe the training side for new employees, the onboarding is awkward for people. It's interesting to me to get on the line with some companies that we talk to, and they've, it's almost like the first time some of these people have met, because they have actually physically never met each other in person. So totally understand that and get that. But the reason why this is important, I think this story is the highlight, is, as you start to do your planning and start thinking about these things, I would understand sort of the trends that we're starting to see in the marketplace. Also, do your systems support the trends that are happening? On this one, I believe as more people move in and move out and more people move around and the rest of it, access control systems, it just makes it even more of like cloud-based systems, cloud-based identities. It moves away from credentialing, in my opinion, more to these identities where you can show up to an office unannounced, and and making sure that you have access or the ability for the systems to respond, stuff like that, I think is all important. So building off of that, the next one was from ZDNet, and it was Aimee, and I apologize, I'll butcher Amy's last name, but Chanthadavong. I apologize ahead of time if I said your name wrong, but Aimee from ZDNet wrote, Atlassian, which is a great software company as well, touts future of work will be underpinned by flexibility and choice. No big surprises or headliners there. It's something we've been talking about, and a trend that we've seen is really the need for flexibility and choice. But when we got into the article, there's some really interesting stuff. It was the same as the above article, right, about Amazon being flexible and understanding how the work is done, and really how the style of which the work is done is redefining it. And what I found interesting was when they interviewed somebody in there, they said, we still have a lot of work to do and get out, but the simple genesis is that we need to change how we work and where we work. We need to separate these two concepts because people often combine them. Very interesting, in my opinion, the combination of how we work and where we work. We're seeing that fabric get sort of stretched and really, I think some deep sort of rooted ways of the past are being threatened in that case, right? And their clear policy has been that where you work is up to you, but how you work has to be standardized. I found that to be just a wonderful way of describing what's going on here, is this idea that you can work wherever you want, but there needs to be an understanding that there's going to be some standardized types of work. And they get into it a little bit, is that we still have physical locations, whether they look more like collaborative co-working spaces. Remember, to keep that in mind. We've been talking about that for a couple of weeks now. It's this whole collaboration space is now the office. They have an opportunity in the building to reshape the way they're doing it, and they think about the office space very differently. And what the thing they did talk about this that they mentioned was that Atlassian just built a huge new office, from my understanding, inside, I think it's Australia. And there was a big talk like, are they going to stop, get rid of whatever? And no, they're not. They're using it. They're just reimagining what it would be, and they're getting very, very specific on the difference between how they work and where they work. Which again, our systems need to be able to do that, because the way people work is changing, and if our systems stay the same, I think there's going to be a problem with that. So keeping a close understanding, reading about it, getting to understand it, communicating, and really talking to companies like this. I find I reach out to a handful of these companies, maybe not them specifically, but other ones, and there seems to be a desire right now to have a conversation, because I don't think a lot of people actually know exactly what they're going to do. So the more collaboration happens, the better. So it's a wonderful time to really have a conversation and get to know. So the other one that we had was from Nadia Tatlow, and this was in Fast Company. Nice short article that had a good amount of information called "Why Staying On Constantly Hurts the Effectiveness of Remote Communication." And this is important. It goes a little bit some of the trends we talked about before, is that people don't believe that the productivity is up. They're very busy, but the effectiveness of that work is not happening. And this gets into, so some studies that they showed was that according to Nielsen, that staying put at home can mean 60% increase in the amount of content we consume. Think about that. I mean, our company is part of that. I mean, we didn't exist really before COVID. We started in January. We started really turning it on in March, and I can tell that just the amount of content that people are consuming, it's a way to connect. But with 60% more an increase of content inside the house, this always on mentality they talk about, it fails to acknowledge, and they say how intertwined work and personal lives have become. And that's a problem. And if you think about this, I love this. Think about the parents who, over the course of a few months, have become their children's teachers, or young adults who are now living and caring for elderly family members. So that the fabric has changed on that end, and there's a concern about burnout and what's going to happen to people. They get into in the article around looking for ways that employees can engage with one another, but in a way that doesn't require immediate back and forth, or the idea that you have to always be present, at the exact same time. So I love this idea and concept of asynchronous collaboration is often intermittent and ongoing, and is potentially productive. So they've studied now, and they've looked into this idea of asynchronous collaboration, things like Google Sheets and whatnot, where you can put information and people can get back to it. If you think like the way that we use Slack and these other tools and Chatter and the rest before on Teams, there was almost like this immediate need to respond, but now like taking a look. So they talk about workspaces being a focused collection of mission critical apps, tabs, and bookmarks that can be shared with your specific project team or colleagues and work on asynchronously. I find that as a term to take away, like how can we create asynchronous collaboration spaces for people to happen? And then if you start to go in to think about how can you apply asynchronous collaboration to actual physical spaces too, it's kind of fascinating. If you think about it, a lot of times offices and meeting spaces, you go into them and then you leave, you take everything with you. They want you to erase all the boards. I wonder now though with spaces, when we go back into the work, is the idea here is that you have pods of where you get work done. Back when I worked at Brevo, one of the things that we were designing into our office space, to speak to it specifically, was this idea. I think it was the New York Times building that we saw this at, but they had these different areas where they created like villages, if you would, and neighborhoods of people, to where you worked in that area, and then when the project was done, you worked in another one. You actually took your stuff, you left it there for the time that you're working on. Or this idea that you could take movable objects around that would create sort of like a cocoon of people that could work, and then you could break off and go to another group. So this idea of creating collaborative spaces that allow for asynchronous work is kind of fascinating if you start to break it down. But again, now if we talk about access control and how we get back to work, do your systems support this type of collaboration to where you may need to get from one space to the other? What levels of security and access do you need? How do you notify cleanliness and the things like that around it, and really show people density? Pretty neat. Last part about this was right now, that means empowering teams to do more focused and collaborative work in a way that considers how tangled personal and professional lives are, because being online and available at all times hasn't proven to be the only solution, and it's not healthy. So, it'd be kind of interesting to see how the work day goes. I don't know about you, but like mine, I went from before, it was like 5 a.m. We'd go till about 8 till my kids got up and came out. Then we'd have to get them set up for school, do the rest, then get some work done, then lunch, then get some work done, then dinner, then get some work done, and then try to spend some time, with the family. And that, it's just that didn't seem to be very healthy. So we've had to create some spaces in order to figure out how we do that. But my working has changed completely, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the office and having the opportunity for collaboration, and actually, getting with my teammates that we work with on a daily basis, but then also getting out in front of customers. When we started this, we had this whole idea that we would be doing videos in person, and I bought a bunch of equipment to be able to do that, and haven't been able to use it. But it's going to be pretty fascinating to see how we go back. So, with that, three stories this week that we talked about. Amazon bets on the office-based work with expansion in major cities. Wall Street Journal, pretty cool article telling you how a big company is looking at the combination of actually investing in more office space. Atlassian looking at how flexibility and choice come in, and this idea that you can work wherever you want, but the work needs to become standardized. And then this concept with why staying on constantly hurts the effectiveness remote, and the concept around asynchronous collaboration, which I love, is I think a great concept to think about and bring back to your own companies. Tomorrow we have the newsletter going out, so please, if you haven't signed up for that, please do. It has these articles, and the links in them will be in there. I'll put them in the show notes as well. We also have an article from our partner OpenPath that we appreciate again for the support of this. And they will have an article in there for you too. And With that, any questions or any feedback? If not, look at that. I'll give you the rest of the afternoon back to you, and look forward to seeing you next week. So thank you very much for taking the time. Appreciate you doing so, and it's an honor and appreciative of being able to do this. So thank you.